far more efficient. I think we give more to our patrons than we ever did in the larger system I've worked at. You know, we all get along in time, no, but we managed to find a way and we have a shared common goal. And I think in many ways, forcing us to move into a bigger one is all 6 of our libraries are gonna lose our voice. And we're gonna lose the ability to do many things that we're doing, like, I know our system put together great little maker boxes. You know, I thought Marjorie was playing with beads one day, but I mean, we have these things, you know, systems that are available to all of us, you know. We have, each one of the libraries has something special to share amongst us. You know, and we did not have that in the big library system that I used to belong to. In fact, you know, you didn't even really know there were how many other than the main library part, because the main library of that system swung the back. And everybody either got in line or got off the ship. You know, I mean, I see no advantage of being forced to go into a big system. And frankly, knowing the city and county I work with, if they don't like it, they probably will get very ungenerous really fast. And not be as supportive as they are if they think that they're losing their voice in a library system that they're now working very hard to be part of. And I hate to lose the governments because right now, you know, they help fight our battles. So I don't see, like, you know, I can't, if I could go to the mayor or the county supervisor and go, well, we have to report to them now up in, you know, Appleton, they might go, well, our mayor loves Appleton, they might go. But, you know, I see people being, you know, losing things. I don't see necessarily an advantage because as much as you're trying to tell me we're gonna have more money, no, we're not. Because you're gonna have to pay for more IT people. You're gonna have to pay for more this. You're gonna have to pay for more that, and all of a sudden, the libraries are gonna lose a lot of money, or we're gonna be forced into services we don't wanna pay for. And, you know, right now, I don't know, there's things that are, maybe can work, but, you know, you're not selling it.
Okay. Well, you've got,
I'm a director. I work in the library. I'm right now relatively new to the game, and I really understand it's good perspective to say that you live in a big system and a small system, but we're really looking at the system and not the individual libraries. And I think each individual library throughout the state, all 380, have their unique abilities and they have their own boards. And so it's the system services that I'm actually excited about. There's other things that, as a director, that I don't know about, but that I think would help all of our libraries. And hoping that we would, I guess I wasn't seeing the downsides, I was seeing the upsides. And I'm very proud of our library and our library system. Our system has been very supportive of our library and provided a lot of support to us and to me. And so, but I know that there's other things that I, as a director, struggle with that I'm like, okay, where do I go? Right here.
I think
Just for our local library.
I think the piece of how you pay for it is definitely a concern, and that is definitely something that that we'll have to look at. The piece of it where your local library can have their own voice, we're trying hard to keep that because we do think that's really important. The piece we're trying to get at is the piece you mentioned. So if your local library director can. She knows that there's a place she can call to get resources. If her board says let's build a new library, she can say, oh, I don't have to be a building expert. I can call this consulting place and get or put my board or put my whoever's gonna spearhead this project. And I can connect them with this resource and we can get this taken care of. Or I've had an issue come up where somebody's challenging a book and I don't know the legalities of how to go about dealing with this on my own, oh, there's a resource for me, I can go and I can get, so in a way I see it as allowing the individual library director to have more energy and her own resources to direct her library, his library, so they'll have more freedom in a way to serve the public, and then have backup for some of these resources that they might need. The piece of paying for all of these things is definitely a piece that has not been completely fleshed out yet. So it's hard to answer some of those questions without being at the point right now where we put the money figures in with the ideal of what we want. We're still sort of at the point of looking at the models and saying, what would the model look like to provide the best service to library patrons? And then we'll have to see, and there might, like a lot of things, there might be things that we want that have to go on the wish list, or we can't fund, right away. So but we don't have that piece completely done yet. So that is a challenging part.
Becky, I'm sorry. Semantics. I'm just a board member. I'm not a library director. Sorry.
Okay, no, I just was like, when does she get to? Okay, no.
Yeah, so I think from a cost side of things, so most systems provide a core set of services that are free and available to all member libraries. The services that tend to be cost shared with the system are the ILS systems, and then in some cases technology, or paying for additional days above what the library system provides for free. And then some of the electronic resources are cost shared. So those are the kinds of things that typically are cost shared now. And then there are varying degrees of money that are provided to libraries directly from system dollars. In some cases, there are no dollars from the system that go to the local libraries. All of it is done in services. In some cases, they may offset some of the cost of the ILS. And in some cases, they don't. They'll do some grant type projects. So there is a scale of the actual system dollars going to local libraries. So that does vary by system. So I'm assuming you get some direct dollars from the system now.
We used to, but then these switched it out so that the system pays for about 90% or more of the ILS.
Okay.
So they kind of forfeited those direct dollars to cover the big ticket item that the system
So
provides.
I think in most cases that funding ratio is less system to system. So it's probably more of a 50-50 or less for that ILS cost share. So that would be the distinction that's different here. In terms of size of system and the responsiveness of the system to the member libraries, I think that varies by system. And I don't know what system you were at before, and but for our system, we are in 10 counties. We have 53 libraries, and we cover slightly more than 7,000 square miles. So if you were to ask our member libraries how responsive the system was to their individual library needs, we would be right up at, in fact, the system importance and satisfaction study that was done at the very beginning of the process, our system was right up at the top, pretty much across the board. So we are, again, as part of this service philosophy of the system, being responsive to those folks. So size doesn't necessarily dictate the level of responsiveness of a system. It's the accountability that the system staff and the system board have to the member libraries that I think really plays into that. And I think both of those models
Yeah, I was
have
just gonna
those
say.
standards and accountabilities that they feel are important to include in there, so that.
Which is a different level of accountability than we have right now. Both of the models have incorporated more accountability from the system to the member libraries.
So, yeah, I think the thing that I've noticed is that where there is dissatisfaction with system services, there seems to be a lack of accountability, or there seems to be a lack of resources. There are some systems that barely have enough money to hire a staff person and have delivery. Or have a couple of staff people and have delivery. And they don't have robust ILS systems, they don't have technology support. They're barely trying to get 2 days worth of delivery to the library. So there's that piece that's out there. And then, we've got some systems that have very small geographic areas and have significant amount of money. So if you're delivering between one county, it's a whole lot different than delivering between twice or 3 times as many libraries in 7 counties. So there are different costs that are associated with some of that stuff too. So that's a tricky thing.
And so I guess that's why, it seems like we keep going back to either the size of the systems or how we're gonna, the amount of money available. How does PLSR expect us to make real comments on either of the 2 models without even having a guesstimate as to what some of those costs might be? Because, I guess it's different if funding doesn't matter at all. It's really easy, right? Then you can go, this is what I want, right? But the reality is that just because this is what I want, and I think this is perfect, if I go, this is gonna cost me though an extra $50,000 a year, I don't really want it as much as maybe I want the one that might only cost me $15,000 a year. That isn't 100% of what I want, but maybe it's 70% of what I want. How do we comment, and then how does PLSR then make a recommendation on a model that really there's no idea as to how it could be funded for a library a library system that has a lot of money and maybe a smaller footprint, square mileage wise. It might be really easy for them to be able to do it versus a library system that now becomes either smaller or bigger, and their funds are much smaller. And then trying to go, well, how are we going to either raise these funds and or keep services to our patrons, either through the system or through the individual libraries, without impacting that? And I guess I don't know, how could I go and say, all right, by July 20th, I can make a comment as to what I think of either one of those 2 models.
So at this point, the comment would be, of the 2 concepts that are out there, in terms of providing services, which of the 2 models do you think would be best to do that? And
Or
then
even
to decide
which parts of,
which
it might
one
be
makes
parts
sense,
of
what
both.
do you need to know? One of those things would be an estimate of how much this might cost, or what services could we be getting in this model that we don't have available to us now? So
And keep in mind,
those-
PLSR's job is to, in those things, like PLSR's job is to figure out what you want, first of all. And that we need help with, like what's wanted. And then also, how to make it happen without costing the libraries any more money, and how to make it happen without anybody's library services decreasing. So you know, it's a big job, but first of all, we need to know like what, you know, what are we shooting for? What do we want? What do we think will work? Because there might be things in there that, you know, are, regardless of cost, are just, you know, bad ideas. As far as service, you know, service goes. So, you know, or there might be things that regardless of cost are great ideas as far as service goes. So, you know, it will be a big job to figure out, you know, if you know, to put all those pieces together. But when you look at the models too, I think you know, you can look at the models. There might be pieces of one model that you think are great and pieces of another model that you think are great. So you can make those comments too, like I really like this piece of it. You know, I really like the state layer of resources. I really don't like the 8, you know, regions. I think we should keep the 16 regions, but keep the, you know, CE portal and the consulting portal. You know, so it doesn't have to be just a one or the other choice.
And because these two models exist today, at the end of I did one of these on Friday, and somebody asked me, what do you see as the outcome on the 30th and 31st? And my response is, I have no idea.
Mm-hmm.
Because based on the feedback, based on the conversations we have on those 2 days, we may end up, like Tracy said, a merger of the two models. Or we may come up with something that, oh, this looks like this could be the start of a transition that we incentivize to get to what we want as a goal. So one of the discussion points that we wrapped up on the 8th was maybe 6 to 8 isn't the ideal number of systems. Maybe it's a few more, but it may not be 16. Maybe it's 12. None of those are set in stone. Just because they're out there doesn't mean we have to land on one of those two.
Also,
So
it's good to
that's-
know if there's something that stands out where it's like, oh my gosh, everybody is telling us they want this. You know, then sometimes you have to look at that and you have to say like, okay, how can we figure out how to get, you know, how to make that happen? So, you know, we're not at the point quite yet where we're really putting the nitty gritty together. And I agree, like that, you know, that makes it hard. That makes it challenging to comment.
I don't envy you guys, so.
Yeah,
Okay, we have to turn the room over, so is there like one last burning question someone has? Great.
Nasty question. Going back to the general concept of accountability, how or who would enforce that if that is a problem within a system? We talked about,
That's a good question.
and that's one of the things we're gonna have to try to figure out, because
Well, we do have accountability in right now that if we don't satisfy a certain area, according to statute, that we could lose a portion of our funding. It
right.
could go along those lines.
So what,
she was talking about the large system in which the small libraries can apparently not hold the larger one.
But
Yeah.
statutes right now don't say to what level we have to reach
Mhm.
a
We don't.
service, and in this new one, they would
there would be
have.
certain levels. So, right, but what Becky just said was, if the system isn't doing their job, the state withholds money from the system. So if it's an underperforming system, the way to fix that underperforming system is take money away from them and make them get better with less money.
So
So-
there's no library system left behind.
So that doesn't make sense from a library service perspective.
But that's a disincentive.
Right.
Or an
But
incentive to
But
get going.
there should be a different way
Yeah.
to hold somebody's system and
And
system board and staff accountable for libraries.
So hopefully this will just be more spelled out. So, you know, that will make it easier too if you're a system director that, you know, to have more more guidelines kind of and know I've got to check off all these boxes and, you know, so,
Yep.
yeah.
Thank you
Yep,
so
you're
much.
welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And if you have questions,